everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Spelling the Heka-tea. We are really excited and kind of like not sure what to do, so we're just kind of it's loosey-goosey. We're gonna wing it. Welcome to the show. I'm Marcus James.
And I'm Evanne Freeman-Casey.
And we are two witches and professionals and funny homosexuals with a lot of opinions, and we thought, what a better way and shit to share them. A little bit about ourselves. First of all, we know each other for we're best friends, best friends for ages, family. We lived together for a very long time. Yeah, so it's a good time, and it's just a very good family dynamic of fun and wonderfulness. And we were thinking, well, why the show? What is this show? What is Spelling the Heka-tea, anyways? And it's essentially a witchcraft talk show for witches, by witches, with the magically inclined, magically curious, and just kind of opinions on the world events, culture, whatever, fashion, all the things about being a witch, witchcraft, all that jazz, from witchy perspectives that are younger and, not necessarily decked out in wolf t-shirts and baggy khakis and cargos, right, and peasant skirts and sticks with ribbons dangling from them and a lot of turquoise. Not that there's anything wrong with any of those things, but that's usually when you think of a witch to talk to.
Basically what we're saying is there will be no jade jewelry on this channel.
Right, exactly. No jade jewelry at all. And I mean, essentially the show came about because, well, my publicist told me to. Not really. Well, actually, kind of. So, I did have to, a little backstory. I'm an author. I write horror novels, Pacific Northwest Gothic, horror romance, I like to refer to it, and very much witchcraft-oriented. The series that I'm most known for is a series about witches, a family of witches, the Blackmores, and Evanne's my editor.
Yes.
And I am not the best with social media, to be honest. I have Facebook, my Facebook's kind of good, my Instagram's kind of good, but, my Threads is for shit, and,
I'm not even on Threads.
Yeah, see, yeah, and I tried with, Twitter, and I tried for years to make that happen, and I couldn't make that happen.
It just never happened.
No, fuck that, not at all.
No.
I just couldn't. I couldn't devote. I come to technology too late, so that just didn't happen. And then I was Elon took over, and I was oh, fuck this. So, I got rid of it, as so many people did. And my publicist was you need to do something with social media. You need to get on TikTok, which I was not. And you need to get on YouTube. You need to take advantage of these channels and these places, and you need to do something with them. And I was well, I don't want to just do that if I don't have a direction. And I didn't have a direction. My Twitter, or my TikTok has, a couple videos of me, one talking about fucking Gaza and Palestine and, free Gaza, fucking stop genocide. And, it had, the trailers for, the Blackmore books and shit. But, there's not really anything in there. There's, 4 videos, because I was I didn't know what to do with it. And, my YouTube channel, which right at the moment this is on, and, up until then, as anyone's watching, you will see, has, just, 2 trailers in a playlist that I created for one of my books. There's just nothing there.
Yeah.
I had no direction. And so I took it to Heka-tea. And, I fucking, it was the, eclipse, actually, the fucking, new moon eclipse. And I took it to her, and I invoked her for fucking direction and guidance. And I was what do I do with my social media? Which is so fucking stupid to begin with. That I'm help me with my social media, please.
Right.
But
modern witchcraft problems require modern witchcraft solutions and questions.
Right. Oh, cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Oh, I love that tea. That tea is so good.
It's very good.
It's so delicious. No, it's true.
Yeah.
And I was what do I do? And she answered pretty quickly that night, and it was while I was before I even closed ritual, I almost went into this trance, and I just and you don't speak, you don't say anything, and plays in front of you the answer, almost how when I see a book, how I see a scene,
exactly.
And I'm just frozen and I'm in it.
So you're watching a movie.
And so I see it, and I see this fucking The View Today Show-esque witchcraft show called Spelling the Heka-tea. And
then we talked about it the next day, and we
it was just, it all organically made sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how this happened, and then it all just I already had the equipment from a previous podcast that I had done years ago, and COVID fucking killed that. Fuck COVID. Got to be careful of how many vulgarities we drop.
Right.
So YouTube, doesn't let us not make money.
Right. We're not trying to kill our chances of being monetized one day.
Right. Exactly. Because we're all prostitutes in the end.
It's true.
That's life, and that you learn that as an author.
Absolutely.
You learn that really quick in the publishing world. So I mean, translates into everything.
True.
I
mean, we're an author and an editor. I mean, what can we really say about any of that?
Exactly. Like it's all prostitution.
Mm-hmm.
In the best way.
But at least we get to be around books.
Exactly.
That's just what we love.
So what does this show look like? What is the plans for spelling the Heka-tea? What is the show's direction? What is it looking like that this is going to even be? I mean, we're going to have interesting, different segments. We review movies, not just movies. So it's anything witch media. So, we review witch media, and instead of stars, we are going to have phases of the moons, which you will see in this episode. And it'll basically be the last few minutes of every episode, which we're planning on having them air every new moon and every full moon. And essentially, right before, on the morning of the new moon. So if you wake up the morning of the new moon, or dark moon, however you want to call it, or if you wake up on the full moon, get on YouTube. It's going to be there. So that's when you can expect us to air every new moon, full moon, unless there is a Sabbath or lesser SBAT of importance, and then which we will have special themed episodes, which this one kind of is. It also just because it's Samhain, so we're just translating into it. Also, everyone, we will take turns moderating every episode, so we're each going to take turns being Whoopi and Meredith Barrera, like it's The View. So, because I kind of am the one who channeled all of this beautiful mess, I decided, I will be Whoopi, I will be the Whoopi.
You are our Whoopi cushion.
Yeah, I am the Whoopi cushion for the episode. Love Whoopi, love you Whoopi, love you. Good going, girl. And you are in danger, so maybe get out of The View if you can. Because, that's a whole other question. That's a whole knife fight.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's kind of, we're going to have a cooking segment for, different meal, dish ideas for your coven meetings, for your Sabbats and SBATs, for your different celebrations, which will be called Delicious Witch. Very excited. I'm an excellent cook. And Evanne is going to be my wonderful sous chef.
Yes.
And learning great new recipes, because she's also ever learning how to be an amazing cook. So, that's going to be fun. We're just going to talk about all sorts of things. The planets, astrology, moon phases, retrogrades, all that shit. We'll touch on all of that kind of stuff.
We just want to talk about all aspects of life through a witch perspective.
Exactly. And what that means now, especially in the current climate of things. Every episode will have a different focus. So, we'll have one where our next one coming up is going to be dealing with Agatha all along, and witchcraft symbolism and secrets and coding and messaging throughout media. Yeah. When it's clear that people who practice witchcraft, who are part of the craft, who are witches, work on these shows or these movies or are in these bands, and it's heavily coded in the songs or within the shows or in the movies. And what does that mean, especially in this day and age? So yeah, that's an example. So every episode will focus on a different thing, while we're also still deal with hot topics and bitch and moan and shit like that.
Right.
So with that being said, no further ado, how would you describe your witchcraft?
So what I do, of course, we talked about my being a fiction editor. I also work in the legal field. I am a document specialist for a law firm. I love that because my real passion will always be editing professionally. Yeah. Ever since I was a little girl, I loved reading, I loved writing, I loved words, I loved grammar, all of that fun stuff that would eventually lead me to my current passion of being an editor. And I just think that I think my current position is just really the most perfect day job that I could possibly have, because I'm still dealing with documents and drafting, and I'm just surrounded by words all day, and that's just what I love to do. Right,
and that's the thing, is if you, let me try to scoot in here, sorry my downstairs neighbors, we are actually filming from my dining room, and we'll actually normally be filming from my office, but it's the Samhain, Halloween / Dios de los Muertos episode, so we wanted to, and I'm a huge decorator, and so my dining room gets tricked the fuck out every holiday. So we thought for the, like, any holiday-themed episodes, we will do them from the dining room because it's just already done, and we have this glowing pumpkin, and we have this goddess of the harvest here, and she's crowned with this, like, diamond band that, like, we just, like, gave to her because she needs it. And then obviously we have our tea kettle for our teacups, which are just really mugs, but, you know, spilling the Heka-tea. So we always have to have our tea.
Exactly.
And, yeah, great times. So, what the fuck was I talking about? Oh.
Oh, you had asked about my witchcraft.
Right. So,
yes.
What I was going to say is, I was interjecting on where we were filming from, but I want to say it is always important that if you can't directly do what you love to do, that you should find something that you can do
that works for you in a different way.
Right, that is closest to it. So anyway, so that is what you do. So
yes, that is what I do. And honestly, that was my closing remark on that part of the question. So remind me, what is the next?
Where are you from? Where are you originally from? Where are you now? What has been every place in between?
So of course, we too live in Tacoma, Washington. We love it.
Oh, this has been like a bother.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, yeah. It's been driving me nuts, girl. I was like, people need to see it.
They do. I love it. So that is where we currently live. I am originally from Jackson, Wyoming, which is a very beautiful place, but you really have to love winter sports or winter in general.
And the Grand Tetons.
Yes, and the Grand Tetons. I mean, not that I don't love the Grand Tetons.
Right.
She is majestic. I mean,
And it's French for tits, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
yes, it is.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, all of the landmarks around there are named for parts of women's bodies, which I think
because it's the French, explorers, pioneers,
French
colonists, whatever, pioneers,
so the
explorers.
Mountains, so the bigger mountains are the Tetons, and then they have Gros Ventre Valley, which is after women's stomach.
Yes.
You know, and really, that's kind of the whole motif of the entire valley.
Love it. No wonder you're a lesbian.
Exactly, and also, you know, I just love that there's this little pocket of Wyoming where that French language has really endured, because I think that there are just a very few selections of the United States that are like that, and I'm just very proud to come from that kind of a place.
Yeah, no, I think that's fucking fantastic. Like, I love that. That's amazing. Obviously, like, that's brilliant. And then, how did you end up in Washington? What brought you to now we're in Washington? Obviously, you hopped in, hopped out, came back. But what initially brought you to Washington to where you and I met, you know?
Well,
all those rusty, dusty ages ago.
Oh, yes, we are creaky at this point.
We are, the centuries.
Well, I had a close relative in my family who lived in Seattle, and so we would spend a lot of time in Seattle growing up, you know, holidays, Christmas vacations, you know, spring breaks as a kid.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I intended initially to Washington, but I definitely did have a love for it. And so at the end of high school, I was with a girl who really wanted to.
Of course.
So it's always a girl.
Always a girl.
Always a girl. Or a boy. Always one of those.
Always one or the other.
But I was with this girl who really wanted to move here because of the music scene, because, you know, as we know in rural Wyoming, like, we knew the Kurt Cobain, and we didn't really know anything else, you know, so we thought that it was still like that.
Right, well, I mean, yeah.
So that's why she wanted to move there, and then it was just already such a place that had such familiarity and such a homey feel to me that I didn't mind going along with it.
Right.
At one point, I really wanted to attend Cornish College of the Arts, because I was very into theater at that time that we were playing.
Right, yes, you were. You were very much a theater kid, for sure.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, I think it was just like a culmination of reasons, really, that just kind of led me to being here. And then we met, and we were fabulous, and it was great.
Right.
And I moved to Savannah because I felt like my time there in Seattle.
Savannah, Georgia.
Yes,
amazing.
Savannah.
A witch's dream. A witch's dream. Especially if you are, like, over 30 or over, and you can't fucking show your tits off a balcony, an iron lace balcony in the French Quarter anymore.
Right.
Like, you're just, not because you don't have the body for it, you're just like, I don't want to stay up that late.
Exactly.
Savannah's for you.
Yeah.
Because you'll actually want to stay up late because no one expects you to do anything except drink and eat.
Exactly.
And not make a ruckus.
Exactly. And if you are watching from Savannah, tell the queen of my heart that I love her and I miss her every single day.
Oh, love and miss Savannah every freaking day. Every freaking day.
Anyway, so the reasons that led to me moving there was I felt like the time that I really belonged in Seattle had come to an end.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, where do I want to go next? I also had just like a lifelong love and affection for the South after spending so much time in Texas growing up.
Right, with your grandparents.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I wanted somewhere that sort of scratched all of those itches. I love
But wasn't Texas.
Exactly.
No
that wasn't Texas.
Not a total offense, anyways.
Right.
As someone who also lives there.
Exactly. When that's such a part of what we initially bonded
right,
over,
exactly.
I feel like, you know.
For good and bad reasons.
Yeah, exactly. But I also, I love history. It was really always important to me to live somewhere where history was important and was never glossed over.
Yeah.
Because I think it's very important to have a respect for your past in any place.
Oh, I agree, for sure.
And I also really liked the idea of just still a city, but a smaller paced city, you know?
Right, not like the hectic, electric, kinetic bustle of Seattle.
Exactly. So that's really what drew me to Savannah, and it was just, with all of the things that were important in my mind, it was a very easy choice. Of course, all of that changed with the pandemic.
Right, as so many things did for so many of us.
Oh yeah, it really reframed what was important in our lives, and to me, what was important was those people that I love the most.
Right.
And not being able to travel back and forth, because I think that like when you and I were able to fly to each other all the time, we didn't really feel that distance.
No,
but when
I would say, yeah. No.
Yeah, when that was taken away, it was a very different situation.
Yeah.
And it made me realize that like I really needed that proximity to those that have
right,
closest
and your
roles
mom's in
my
Oregon.
life. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah. So yeah. And then, how would you describe your witchcraft?
Let's see. I would definitely describe myself as a natural witch. I've always kind of had a gift since I was a kid, and been sort of attuned to things that other people were not necessarily as attuned to. I definitely think I heard the call of the divine feminine very early in my life. All of the goddesses and deities who have come forth and wrapped their arms around me have been those very like maternal queen mother goddesses,
right?
You know, I mean, first when I was a little 7-year-old, Hera was the first to appear to me.
Yes. Hera was like yes for a long time for you.
Oh yeah, I mean, and honestly, she is just one of those deities who, whether or not she's like speaking to me in that more direct way, like she will always be the first goddess that came to me. She'll always be watching over me. I do know that.
Right.
So then, following through life.
My hair.
Oh yeah. So yes.
Gonna be so pretty.
Always. So then following through like the course of life, and then of course like Heka-tea was the next to show up, and of course, you know, big mama witchcraft. Like I think so many witches, especially natural witches, are called by Heka-tea.
Right, I agree. Yeah, 100%. I think that's unique. Uniquely true, I would say.
Absolutely.
For so many reasons.
So many. And then I guess as I started learning more about...
Trying to adjust my mic, sorry. Oh no. Oh, I hope I didn't mess that up. Did I mess that up? Can you all hear me? Am I coming in clear? This is Mike TV. Am I coming in clear? So how would you describing your witchcraft?
As I started learning more about witchcraft in general, and then of course like what I wanted my practice to look like, I found that I was very drawn towards the voodoo practice. And at that point, as I learned more and acquired more, you know, knowledge and stuff like that, I also found that Zili was really reaching out to me in a very, very close and direct manner.
Yes, I would, as someone who lived with you at the time, I would agree with that.
And I still feel like she is kind of the most, out of all of the deities that I feel like are presences in my life, like I really feel like Azili is the most close in my day-to-day life, you know? So for sure her, and then of course most recently, I've gotten tapped by Santa Muerte, of course, again, Heka-tea, just in a different aspect.
Right. I mean, and again, that's all relative.
Yes.
I mean, that goes into anthropology and more historical context versus religious, and for some that's very division, and they are very different, whereas others there is synchronicities. I'm a firm believer of synchronicities.
Yeah,
like,
I am too.
There's just no way to not be like, this is the same deity, the same form, just in a different drag, in a different place. And you still honor them individually based on those regional demands.
Yes.
But same chick, same bitch, different, same bitch, different drag.
Yeah.
You know, as they say.
So when basically those four entities that really kind of represents who I am as a witch.
Right.
I think.
And what would you say in terms of spell work? Do you do more spell work or more like devotional petitional work?
I think for me, like, root and candle magic is a huge part of what I
Love
do.
Candle magic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, what I've noticed in, like, our different rituals in our homes, like, is that yours are a lot more, I don't want to say formal, but...
Oh, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
there is a ritual formality to my rituals.
Mm-hmm.
There's ritual to my rituals. But there's like a hymnal church.
Yeah, there is a
structure.
Yeah,
there's a structure. There's a structure to how I do ritual, but not in a ceremonial magician, Golden Dawn hermetic magic kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who know, you know. And we will, if you trust us, get into all that shit. But that's not this one. But yeah.
But yeah, for me, I think I do have sort of a more like informal like
way of practice.
Yeah. Like when I sit down to ritual, I will write like a personal petition to my goddesses and, you know, thank them for all of what they've brought into my life, and then, you know, petition that I would like to be brought from that point forward. I'll gather, you know, different roots and herbs. I'll, you know, make it specific as to what is for what.
Sure.
As you do. I do really get into fire magic, you know, of course, like, I think that's something we share in common.
Oh, yeah, being
you know, fire signs,
yeah.
You know.
An intense fire signs with that, yeah.
And I even would venture to say, I mean, no offense to the Sagittarii in our lives,
oh, yeah.
but, you know, you're a Leo, I'm an Aries, and we are the rulers of the fire signs.
Oh, yeah, yes. Whereas Sagittarius are more of the
you know, I think the stereotype of them as the travelers is really
the traveler.
true,
Yeah,
you know?
they're the free spirit of the fire. They're the fire that catches the wind when there's a windstorm, and it spreads the fire to an uncontrollable state that then engulfs the entire mountainside and wipes out
whereas like
everything inside.
Whereas both Aries and Leo, I think like we have that energy of, you know, here I am, here my fire burn.
Right, no,
know?
for sure. For good and bad. It's not like we're saying,
no,
better
no,
because of
not
it.
At all.
But for sure. But that is like, that is the difference, I would say, between like how we burn and how a Sagittarius burns, and what directs them and what directs us. So tell me, do you ever work with male deities? Do you ever do male deity work or spirit work? Or is it just female?
You know, it is overwhelmingly female, but I will say there are some male deities that have come to me.
Sure.
For instance, I mean, not to harp on Purdue again, but Agwe comes to me sometimes.
Yeah, okay.
But I think it's more so he will come to me in a certain moment, but he's not, like, omnipresent in my life, you know what I mean?
He's like, hey girl, I got a message.
Exactly.
Right. Which I totally understand. There are deities in my life that same thing. Yeah, I would say, you know, for myself, like I said earlier, I'm an author. I write novels, fiction, only fiction. I only write fiction. Only fiction. I'm going to open an Only Fictions account. I wish that existed. I guess it kind of does. Patreon and shit like that, GoFundMe's. I mean, well, those are for like people to pay for your funerals and to send you to Disneyland.
Right.
I
mean, we'll take it if you want to go.
Right. I mean, it's not anything. Yeah, I write books. I write mostly about vampires and witches and ghosts and spirits and serial killers, all taking place in Washington State for the most part. I also take care of... No, that's pretty much it. I'm an author. That's what I do. I also am an amazing cook. I'm a really amazing cook. But I never went to culinary school. I'm lacking that formal training. Good, bad, who knows, whatever, it doesn't matter. Because I'm a delicious cook. Delicious witch. I'm a delicious witch. And then I'm an activist. I've been a gay rights activist for decades. My bones are rickety. My activist bones in general are rickety. My bones in general are rickety. I'm like the skeleton dance over here. Boop, boop, doop, doop, doop. Like, like just knocking on my bones. I am also a witch, and I do book signings, and I go on tours, and I do guests on podcasts and radio shows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And now the host of this show, Smelling the Heka-tea.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what I do. And I'm a lifelong Washingtonian. I'm from here. Not lifelong. I did live in other places, but like my heart is lifelong. And I did grow up here for the most part. The first 16 years of my life were spent here, and 17 years of my life were spent here in Washington. And then went to Texas for a year, El Paso, and hey, chicos tacos. Love your flautas and salsa verde. If you know, you know. And Liz DeWicki, I am talking to you because I know you know what I'm talking about with the Chicos Tacos. Welcome back to Seattle, girl. I hope you enjoyed your 2 years in El Paso. I knew you'd come back. That's all. Anyway, so I then moved back to Washington, was here for like 6 months. I would not work out the way I wanted it to and needed it to be, and people are shitty. So I moved back to El Paso, where I ended up being for like 5.5 years. And there, I met some amazing brujeria and curanderos and brujeros, and really was able to explore a different side of witchcraft and magic that genetically I was connected to, ancestrally I was connected to, but had no actual familial relation to, namely because my father was not in my life. So there was just a lot of great reconnection there on a magical level and cultural level, and understanding just different sides, different parts of myself. Also what it means to be American Native, since my father is also American Native, and so yeah, just a lot of different like sides and magical parts of the craft and other traditions of the craft to tap into and connect with. And I then moved to San Francisco, Berkeley, and just kind of continued on to there, to Santeria, and it was, you know, amazing. And something happening, I don't know. So we have fairies, or ghosts. I'm pretty sure it's fairies, or the fae have invaded my apartment. And they're stealing shit, taking shit. It's a whole thing. I think they're actually fucking with the camera right now. Or it's a ghost. Either way, there's a whole like cleansing, banishing, barrier, rebuilding situation that I kind of have to do that I haven't gotten to yet. And who knows? Maybe we'll kind of film it, but I don't. So disclaimer: we're probably never going to do like spells or rituals unless it's directly related to like the set or the episode itself on camera, because that's like a really like sacred, special thing. We do have like our studio altar, so that will be something that will be lit and will be seen on camera all the time. It is set up right now, but you can't really see it at the moment because of how everything's angled. Again, it'll be different unless we're in the office. So yeah, we just won't be doing that. Anyway, otherwise I just don't think your shit's gonna work. You can't focus. Your energy's not going there. You're probably gonna drain the battery. It's a whole situation.
Yeah, exactly.
So then I, from there, ended up in Colorado and then Arizona. And I was in a really kind of hectic place in those moments. So, like, I was still practicing witchcraft, and I was still convening, conversing, etc. But it was just kind of, I had a lot of other stuff going on. So there was a disconnection happening. And then I moved back to Washington in 2009, which is when you and I met. Later in the fall of 2009. I moved back in May of 2009. And it was a slow journey back to, it was like 2011, that I think I like really reconnected with my witchcraft. Yeah. Because I was in a dark place for a really long time, and I never lost faith. Like, I never lost belief, I never lost faith, I never lost understanding or recognition of who I was and that I was a witch and what that means. And yes, boys are witches. They are not warlocks. Warlock is oathbreaker, and in fact, how that came about was because in Sabbath, it's like a witch who betrayed their coven was a warlock, and that like got twisted somehow through hearsay, then through the witch hunters, witch finders, that warlock was a male witch, but that was not the case. It was also kind of believed that maybe it was applied to men because men were seen as oath breakers, betrayers, deal breakers, because men were supposed to be so connected to God above even women, you know? So, like, if they were practicing witchcraft and they were oath breakers, they were warlocks. But if you yourself are a male witch, you are just a witch. Now, I know that there are some that are reclaiming it, which, more power to you. I don't know why. Like, I think it's just a gross word in general. Like, I think it sounds like a fart.
I agree.
Like, Becky took a warlock. Like, not even a fart, like a dump. Like, a big dump, like, behind the drape. Like,
exactly.
Becky did a warlock. Or it's like a three-way. Like, it's like a gangbang position. I don't know.
I also think it's actually very disrespectful because, like, if you look back, like, there are several family lines that have existed whose witches were exclusively male.
Yeah.
And I think that to exclusively use the term warlock versus witch, I think that's, I think it's rude, and I think it's erasing so much of a culture, of our history, of our witches.
Right. No, exactly. I mean, it really annoys the crap out of me that Ryan Murphy referred to his male witches as warlocks. Like,
I agree.
And then on top of that, because they were all fairies.
Yeah.
Like, they were all fags. For them, like, for him to clearly establish in his universe that witches are homosexuals. Or at least bisexual. Either way, they take it up the butt, they suck the dick.
Yeah.
So for him to, so then on top of that, to then call them warlocks versus witches, we even know fags call themselves a warlock.
No.
Every little homo is putting on their conical hat and their cape, getting on their broom, and they're fucking twitching their nose and they're witches.
Exactly.
They're not like, I'm a warlock. Like, no.
No.
Like, that's like saying that I'm a wizard or a magician. No gay boy, no. If he is blessed with magic, he's a witch. And any gay boy who practices magic is going to identify as a witch.
Of course.
I mean, I'm sure everyone's individual, so I'm sure that there are male witches out there who call themselves something else, and maybe who call themselves warlocks, or they don't call themselves anything.
Right.
Maybe they just say they're magically inclined, or they're prone to manifestation. They're really good at manifesting.
Right, like the people who say they're sensitive, but they mean they're witches.
Right, exactly. So, you know, so I just kind of hopped around, came back to Washington, reconnected, and that's kind of where, but, you know, I've always had Washington in my heart, and I've always written about it.
Okay, so same question, how would you describe your witchcraft journey?
So I think, like, mine's interesting, because, so I came from a spooky family. And what do I mean by that? They're not, like, gothic or anything. They're not, I mean, some of them have phases. But, like, my family's just spooky. They're from this town called Bellingham, Washington, which is way up by the Canadian border, and it's this, like, port town, college town, fishing port town, that is, like, nestled in these mountains, and it's wild, and it's really, really haunted. It's on a vortex. It has this town has all these, like, legends and shit going on with it. And there's this neighborhood called South Hill, Fairhaven, Edgemore, and it's, like, the oldest parts. And it's super haunted, and there's all these Victorian mansions and cottages and Tudor homes and all these just beautiful homes, kind of like the neighborhood we live in now, but in like a more compact situation with you know, ghosts in every street corner, every house is haunted, and everyone in my family is sensitive in one way or another and are really good at manifesting their emotions and affecting things, and some have directly at one point or another or still do practice witchcraft in some way, shape, or form. My great grandparents came from the Ozarks, and there was a whole hill folk, hill magic, powwow, Appalachian. I mean, not Appalachian because it's not the Appalachians. The Ozarks are not the Appalachians, but it's that whole kind of strain of like hillbilly, hill folk, Scotch Irish, Black Irish, and I mean, well, not Black Irish. That's not the right term I want to use. Historically, so like Romany, Sinti, but also Scotch Irish, native mix kind of situation. So I guess. But I don't want to say like Irish traveler or Irish gypsy because that's not the right term either. But it's kind of the closest I can come up with a thing. Like, so all these things kind of throughout the hills and close communities, and but also deep in like Pentecostal and evangelist tent, you know, fire and brimstone tent revivalism of the 1900s and 20s and 30s. So you know, a lot of charm work and spellcraft work involving hymnals and Bible verses, shit like that. But there's just, my family was always spooky and weird and always knows shit, sees ghosts, blah, 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 always living in haunted houses. We're always drawn to haunted spaces, whether buying them or renting them. That's what we gravitate to, the ghosts call to us. So I grew up in a family where magic was very real, and witches were real, and it was all real, but then also was like God and the devil, but then like also not really, and it was like this whole like whatever. And so I had a freedom to like kind of really just let myself and my imagination, my spirit fly. And very quickly, early on, when I'm trying to figure out my unique hyper-awareness and everything, I remember I immediately, one of the first times I ever saw a witch, like the image of a witch, I want to say it was like just like an illustration, like it was like an illustration of a witch, not on like a side of a building or anything. It was like one of those old like from like the early 1900s, like New Yorker sketches type things of a witch, and I immediately felt something. Like I just was like, that's me. And immediately like witches started playing in my life. But the thing is too is like I also kept being like specifically hearing Heka-tea. Hearing Heka-tea, 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 however you would like to pronounce her name, they are actually all correct. The pronunciation is totally correct. So if anyone ever tells you, oh no, you have to pronounce it this way or this is proper, I mean, you can ask the Greek person, but here's the thing: Heka-tea didn't originally start in Greece, and she found her way from the land of Canaan in the Middle East, and then eventually found her way in Greece thousands of years later, and then thousands of later years Rome. So her name is ancient and from far off and unknown places, and from the beginning and the beginning and the beginning. So however you want to address her, she will listen. So sorry for the sidebar. So I would just see watch the witches, right, and Angelica Houston and the Grand High Witch, and to me I was like. I knew the Grand High Witch was a Grand High Witch. It was I didn't have language for the goddess, the witch goddess Heka-tea, or what that meant, or any of the witch goddesses, or what that meant. But I just knew that, these supreme witch bitches, badass bitches that I was seeing, and, in these imageries of the witch, and, the witch of the wood, and, the witch on the broomstick, and, just the images that we think of fall and Halloween and the witch, I just knew was this supreme being of some kind, and that she was calling to me.
Yeah.
And so I fell into formal witchcraft right away. I went to at the library. I started checking out spell books when I was the first spell book I ever checked out was a design aimed at children, and I checked it out when I was 7 or 8 years old, and I remember it had amazing illustrations on it. I'm actually trying to find it online right now. I've been hunting for it. But it had a bunch of spells and shit in it. I was 7 or 8 years old, and I checked it out from the public library one summer, and I was doing spells left and right out of it. I took to witchcraft right away.
Yeah.
Right away. And I would say from that, from the calling of Heka-tea early on, I also found myself drawn to, or called by later on in life, called by Santa Muerte. She and I share her feast day. It's August 15th.
Yeah,
that's my birthday. I have always been a hedge witch, basically, and a natural witch, obviously, definitely.
Yeah.
And before people were there's no such thing as natural witches, and and it's all, everyone can do witchcraft, blah, blah, blah. This is true, but there are people who are magically inclined from birth, and that is who I would say are natural, we grew up calling natural witches.
Yeah.
People who they had a natural talent for it, they could manifest shit, they can affect change in their immediate physical atmosphere around them based on emotions, whatever. They're commune with spirits, they just intuitively know things, they're magically inclined, and it's just natural. And then there are people who are witches, who practice magic, whatever they call themselves, but they're not magically inclined naturally.
Right. They had to study it.
They had to study it, they practice it, they tune into their ancestors and deity, and this all happening. It's just, if you took all of that away, they would not be able to do anything, or see, or perceive, or do whatever on their own.
Right.
It's just they don't have that natural talent.
Yeah.
And so that is what we mean by it. But that does not mean that one is less than or the other. It just means, because there are natural witches who, don't study witchcraft or magic of any practices of witchcraft, magic, occultism, etc. And so someone who doesn't have any naturally inclined magic, but let's say has been studying hermetic ceremonial magic and is a ceremonial magician for 20, 30 years, will kick that natural witch's butt. There's, what I mean? So that, it's just, that's just what we mean between natural witches and not natural witches. It's just, that's the terminology, language, etc. that we're using. Unpopular opinion that there is or isn't that, but there is. Sorry, but there is. There are people who just cannot for the life of them manifest, twitch their nose, create anything, affect anything, perceive anything, sense, commune, whatever with anything on their own. They just can't. So I have been drawn to her, Santa Muerte, and feeling her for a long time, but I just never tapped into it. I was always afraid, because I have my biases. She's scary.
Yeah.
The people in cartels, she's the narco saint. She is fierce, powerful, direct, quick to answer, scary, and I just didn't know what to do. And I, avoided her. I avoided her for a very long time. I avoided her for years.
Yeah.
But I could always feel her hovering, and there would always be these signs, these things happening that were very much directly telling me that she was trying to get my attention. And then the summer of 2019, August 15th, August 1st, 2019 through up to August 15th, 2019. She started literally manifesting in my house, haunting. I was scared. I would get to go to the bathroom. I'd be scared to go get a drink of water at night because she would be there. Because she was challenging me to confront her and face what I was afraid of and see that she was not scary and that she was just Heka-tea and another drag and another part of me and another aspect of my own self that I needed to connect to, and that I could only do so with her and through her. And so I just gave into it. And I fell completely and utterly into studying and learning about her and devoting myself to her. And I kind of go to her during the daytime, Heka-tea at night. Heka-tea mostly new moons, full moons, Sabbath, whereas Santa Muerte is the daily aspect. Santa Muerte is the weekly aspect. Santa Muerte is the more direct, all the time, whereas Heka-tea, I respect Mom, and I gotta respect her business hours.
Right.
So, you know. So, yeah, I kind of just came from a background where witchcraft was, you know, not prevalent so much as, like, I mean, in some ways it was, but, you know, some people in my family can scare you just with a look and pierce straight through your soul. Other people in my family can predict if it was raining, if it was literally raining on them in the moment. So, but because I would say that for me, though, I really, like, for whatever reason, was really attuned to spirits and, you know, ghosts, spirits, entities, from a very early age, more so than anyone else in my family. And so I just found myself gravitating towards a lot of the spooky and spookier magic, I guess. And I kept being approached by, you know, deities of crossroads, deities of spirits, and for lack of a better term, necromancy. And I essentially just kind of found myself being drawn to that as a way to control it and understand it, because ghosts would scare the shit out of me, and dealing with them all the time was like, as a kid, it just freaked me the fuck out. And so witchcraft, hedging, the more barrier, spookier, working with the dead side of witchcraft, and just the darker forces in general, have always just really appealed to me. And so I guess that's how I would best describe my witchcraft, is I just want to be the witch in the wood. Like, I just want to be the witch in the wood, and I'm spooky, and like, but also nice, and like, but, you know, I've got some things in some jars that would freak you out, you know, and I just want to be the quintessential witch, and I guess that's how I would describe my witchcraft, is it's quintessentially witchy. So what about you? What was your witchcraft journey like? What was that in general, starting out, you know, to now?
So like you, I definitely felt like I was attuned to spirits and forces that I didn't necessarily understand from a very early age. Although I'm like you, my family is not one where witchcraft is as prevalent. It definitely, I have observed it in a couple of my relatives, but it's very much on the down low in my family. It's something that, you know, when you are blessed with the gift, it's not necessarily something that you talk about to the other relatives. Right. You know? So I think that, although I was drawn to it from a very early age, I was not very educated about it for most of my childhood, just because of the sort of swept under the rug mentality that my family had.
Excuse me, adjusting the mic for any noise or interference you guys heard in that. Yeah, I was trying to do it stealthily. Again, we were at my dining table. Also, these mics were in storage for like 2.5 years or more. Well, since 2020, they haven't been used. So they're all kind of out of sorts. So I'm still trying to get that figured out. Also, we're in my dining room, like I said earlier in the episode, at the beginning of the episode. So I think it'll be better once it's set up in the office, but just an apology.
Yeah. Anyway, so like I said, I come from a family where it is prevalent, but it's very much not spoken about, swept under the rug. And so I wasn't very educated about what I was experiencing until about the age of 12, and I started, I'm not sure why it was at that age that it really struck me, and became more strong than it was in my earlier childhood. But
middle school.
Yeah, middle school. You know, all those years. But at that point, I really started feeling the pull to get more educated about what I was experiencing, and to learn as much about witchcraft as I could.
Yeah.
I also, of course, you know, being a middle schooler, you are also dealing with other things from your peers, bullies, things like that. I definitely...
Vengeance magic.
Yes.
That was what I was about to say. It was like, me too, like, I think I turned to spellcraft more than ever in school, because then it's because it's the bullies. And
exactly.
It's the vengeance magic. People like to say, oh no, it's the love spells. Like, it's, no. Most middle schoolers, whether they're raised in the craft, or they come to it early on in life, or in middle school, they start going hard usually in middle school, and it's usually always the vengeance magic.
Yes.
It's always.
And, you know, I think I really like...
The popularity. Spells, friendship, popularity.
And I always sort of gave off those spooky vibes, even when I wasn't aware of myself doing anything.
Spooky, yeah.
And so I always had the reputation at school, oh, that's Evanne, she's a witch, she's gonna curse you.
And you're so, I get it, girl. So yeah, so they all just figured you were spooky.
So yeah, they all kind of I felt very like ganged up on. It was my witchcraft was a point of topic of my bullying, so I can't really separate the two from each other. And I think that maybe that's what really pushed me to learn more about magic was, I wanted to say to my bullies, like, oh, if you're gonna call me a witch, then that I will just fulfill all of your desires.
Right. Yeah.
But then of course, you deal with peer pressure as well.
Yeah.
So I think like it was around like probably my mid-teens that I did take a step back from my witchcraft, which is something that I look back on, and I don't want to say that I regret it, but at the same time, I wish I could tell that teenage me that she doesn't have to do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I wish I could tell all of the teenagers to embrace themselves.
Right.
Because that was not my experience when I was of that age. And actually, I would say that when we met, when I was in my late teens, that was kind of the point at which I felt safe to come back to my craft and my true self.
Yeah. For context, I was like 23, 24 when I met her, and she was 19. Mm-hmm. So like we were still young.
Yes.
I mean, we're still young.
Yeah.
But I feel younger now in a lot of ways than I did then, but also was physically younger then. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I think that we all go through moments of questioning and waxing and waning, pun totally intended, with our journey, relationship, practice, movement, etc., within and without, as the phrase goes, within and without the craft. Especially when, if a lot of what you're getting from the craft, like the media of the craft that you're finding, is really Wicca focus, really Wicca centric, very, and it harm none, do what thou will, be it the whole of the law, or, ever abide the law of three, whatever you do comes back to thee. Like, no. If you practice and adhere to Wicca, and that is the binding and pledge you have made with your magic, then you are bound by the law of three for sure.
Right.
But, there are so many magical traditions in witchcraft in general. Is not Wicca, and witchcraft has nothing to do with the law of three.
Exactly.
And, and even that was was kind of, as, it was invented. Yeah. For PR in, like, the 60s or 70s. Like, it really was, and if you go back to, like, the teachings of the Golden Dawn and the Hermetic rites of the Templars and all the ceremonial magical law, what you find is, do what thou wilt, be it the hold of the law. Which means that in magic, the law of magic is that it's there, and you can do what thou will.
Yes.
There is no do what thou will and it harm none.
Right.
That was not ever part of it.
No.
Like, that was just never part of it. So when you're faced with a lot of, like, what I call, like, Wicca, I always compare to, like, the contemporary evangelical corporate strip mall Christianity, in a lot of ways. Not to say that there aren't good things about it, and we will talk about Wicca later and better and whatever. But
it is so widespread that I think a lot of people don't realize there's more to witchcraft than just Wicca, and there's more practices of witchcraft than one can possibly imagine.
Right.
There's a million different religions and diasporas, and I think that, especially in pop culture, when you think of witchcraft, you do think of Wicca, and that's not necessarily correct.
Right, and it doesn't help that, unfortunately, Wiccans and prominent names in Wicca, especially in the Wicca boom of the 80s and 90s,
yes.
literally were like, Wicca is witchcraft, witchcraft is Wicca. And, like, witch and Wicca became completely conflated. And there are so many that still adhere and own that and say, well, no, I am a witch, I'm Wiccan. Like, I'm a witch. If you're not Wiccan, then you're not a witch or whatever. And so I think when you are exposed to that, especially when you're young and it's just not tapping into who you're, I think it can push you away. Like, it can kind
absolutely.
of, until you can find those other avenues of witchcraft and magic that speak to you. I think that there is, in my own experience, I experienced many times throughout my life where for a few months or a few years even or longer, like, I didn't touch the craft at all. I never stopped having faith or belief in Heka-tea or any other deity or spirit or anything of that sort. I just was in those moments, I was in such a place where for one reason or another, I just couldn't connect to it, and I was far away from it. And I would say it was definitely once you and I moved into the little cottage in Georgetown, up in Seattle where we used to live. Not the house, but where we lived next to a little cottage. A little house, that everything became magic, occult, witchcraft centered.
Because then, that was the point at which finally it was just the two of our energies together in the home.
No roommates, no one to stay in. You'd have to stay in the broom closet.
Exactly.
And so there was no need to hide practice anymore. Which, when you're living with roommates, I mean, the biggest fear is them being like, you're a Satanist, you're a devil worshiper, you're a witch. Like, they want to either just kick you out, or worse, kill you, beat you up, whatever, damage your shit, like any number one of things. So I think that's the other reason is most of my life was spent with roommates.
Yeah.
So yeah, she just always kind of made herself known to me, and I was just always just kind of drawn in by that, and yeah, if I would say that my witchcraft journey, and then as I got older, I just fell more and more into, I guess you would say, the darker practices, the darker arts. I just really felt, I don't know, I just felt this connection to both the good and the bad, and I quickly understood that what Wicca, neo-paganism Wicca was pushing was not real, wasn't witchcraft. It wasn't the definitive witchcraft, and there are Wiccans who are not witches. They don't practice magic. They're Wiccan, but they're not witches.
Yeah.
And obviously there are witches who are not Wiccans. And so then I just more started exploring the myths and the festivals and the celebrations and the history, etc., of the deities that I followed themselves.
Yeah.
I still follow the Wheel of the Year, which all the celebrations are real and drawn for something, but celebrating some organized Wheel of the Year that was created by Gerald Gardner, And but I like the structure of the holidays. I like it. I love to celebrate them. It makes, there's 8 minor and major, and I think that, all the Sabbats and the Esbats, I just think it makes for an enriching life, an enriching spiritual life. And this is very much not just about casting spells and magic.
Exactly.
And of course there are atheistic witches and stuff out there, but for me, because of my deep spiritual faith devotion, being called by Heka-tea, and to be clear, I never sought out a deity and was like, this deity, it sounds cool, so I want to worship them.
Right.
I want to work with them. I want to dedicate myself to them or whatever, revere them. They very clearly have to be loudly speaking out to me in a way that just a lot of synchronicity is happening, that it literally is pointing to them, and not because I'm looking for it, but literally just it pops up, and it's even later down the road that you go, oh my god, that okay, that symbol, okay. Where it's with Heka-tea, where as a child I was just coming upon her everywhere I looked. She just started popping up. Her name started popping up. That's kind of how it happens with every deity that God, goddess that I would ever work with, in any capacity. Because I'm not one to just be like, oh well, I'm gonna invoke Aphrodite for this specific spell. No, what am I that's like a stranger on the street.
Exactly.
So I just they come when they make themselves very prevalent to me that, hey, I'm tapping you. I have things to teach you that they can't, that who you're following now currently cannot, and they tag me in. And it's always very much that understanding and feeling of anyone that I've worked with, any deity, god, goddess that I've worked with since Heka-tea, or has been either because they are, an aspect, or she tapped them in and was there is some things magically, pathwise stuff that in tradition-wise, in terms of magic, that I can't teach you.
Yeah.
They can, so I'm going to tap them in. And so I like those aspects of what I could take from, I guess, neo-paganism and Wicca as the Wheel of the Year.
Right.
To be honest, I would have, and then obviously I celebrate a bunch of minor holidays that are specific to whatever deity or path that I follow. And so, but I like that it gives a sense of religiosity to my life. I do. I like the spiritualness of it. I'm not an atheist. I'm not agnostic. I very firmly worship and believe and praise and work with who I do. And I have no shame in that. I'm a proud follower of Heka-tea, and part of the point of this is to reach out to other witches, and specifically witches who follow Heka-tea, and specifically other queer witches, and gay male witches, and follow, and So yeah, I'm totally proud of that. So, and always have been. I've never been ashamed of that.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, so that's in a nutshell kind of what my journey has always been. I have tried to work, and we'll touch on this later, working covens and groups throughout my life, other circles, and that goes how it goes.
Yeah.
You know. So, with that all being, I guess, kind of said, and where we're at now, our introduction of who we are, let's kind of get to the subject of the episode. This is obviously the Halloween, Samhain, Time of the Dead, All Souls, Dios de los Muertos, time of the, video, time of the year, all about thinning veils, barriers, transformation. So how could we not, especially after our first episode, how could we not do it themed? I mean, I lied. We did manage to wrestle up some footage of the altar, so you guys can see it. Here it is. We love it. It's great.
It's beautiful.
As you can see right there in the middle, she is our grain mother. I love that her face is just kind of undefined. I think it represents Maiden Mother Crone, all of us, within and without. Heka-tea is the mother of all gods and men. Heka-tea as the harvest, as life, as nurture, as the Sotira, the savior. I just love it. And just harvest bounty and obviously glamour and beauty, and because we love that shit. And we're those kind of witches.
Exactly. We're witches of the finer thing.
Yes, we are. We pride ourselves in that.
We do.
And we will have a whole episode dedicated to witchy fashion, witchy aesthetics, what that means, what that looks like, in the next couple of episodes. So, woo woo. So yeah, and then as I said kind of earlier, the Silver RavenWolf of it all. So brief backstory on Halloween, Samhain, whatever. For those of you who don't know, who are watching, so Halloween, as we all know it, is kind of secular party time, but also Christian, All Souls Day, All Saints Day, but that was taken all from pre-Christian and more specifically pre-Christian Celtic, mostly Celtic infused, slight Roman infused, pre-Christian celebrations, specifically dating back 4 to 6,000 years. I believe it's 6,000 years in total, kind of before and then in through Christianity, predating Christianity. And our traditions of Halloween are mostly from the Celtic Samhain or Samhain in Wales, or Salvin in Scotland, Britain, Scotland, areas, the carving of jack-o'-lanterns, the use of turnips, the lighting of bonfires, divination. The Druids would sacrifice some of the cattle and sheep and horses to give back what they had taken, what they had been given. They would then give back to the earth and then read the future in the entrails to see who was going to prosper in the community, etc. And then it met with the Roman festival of Pomona, which was celebrating the harvest goddess Pomona. She was the goddess of prosperity and the harvest and the orchard. And so then when that was kind of merged, then that's when apples and things kind of more worked into it. And then we have Dios de los Muertos, which is, which is indigenous pre-Christian death ceremonial celebration, where you saw a lot of the same kind of imagery, skulls, skeletons, the spirits, but then has mixed with the Christian Roman Catholic Church, and Spanish Catholic specifically, and the Spaniards have their own, with the Gaelic, their own pagan pre-Christian traditions. So, there are some Catholic churches, sects, denominations of Catholicism that are more pagan still than others. Irish Catholicism is very much one that is still very, very witchy. Yeah. And so in Mexico, same thing. You still, you have dedicated, Christians, Catholics who are curanderas and brujerías.
Right.
And everyone goes to tarot readers and everyone gets their palms read. And it's, when I lived in El Paso, brujerías and curanderas were everywhere. Botanicas everywhere. Love, love, love. So, every place kind of has their festivals, and these all kind of merged. And so that's where we are now with Halloween. And so now it's just become really just commercial for most everybody else. So just spooky, fun, la 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 la. But it does still retain for pagans and in the faithful, still in Mexico and everything, still has very much a spiritual significance for witches, pagans, neo-pagans, Wiccans and everything in between, and then for Christians, it is also religious for them. Catholics, it's All Souls Day, All Saints Day.
Right.
So that's still, they don't necessarily go to the season in general, but Christians, it's like spiritual for them, but in like a negative way, where they're afraid of us coming for them, and they're praying, a lot of them are focused on prayer, and they believe it's the devil's birthday, and we're coming for them, and, because we're witches, scary, and, I would say, we have our little cheat sheet here. With that being said, what do you love and connect to in the seasons most for yourself? Like imagery, the media culture. What are those things? What are those things for you that you love the most?
Well, I would say the number one thing for me is pumpkins on the porch. I think that just evokes such a rich history. If you think back to the traditions that started that, the offerings that you were leaving. For the dead and
dumb suppers.
Yes, exactly. I find it very fascinating that these traditions have survived so many centuries and so many evolutions over time. From their starting point to what they are now. I think that the image of the pumpkin with the candle inside warding off danger is just so timeless. As important today as it was at the very beginning. I love that. I love old illustrations of witches, specifically, like we were talking about with, the Victorian and Edwardian era.
Oh, the Halloween postcards. The Halloween postcards are...
Yes.
Yes. Love. I feel, to me, those are like prayer cards.
Yes, absolutely. I think that one of the earliest depictions of a witch that I really gravitated towards was actually the evil queen from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Yes, same.
I remember watching that movie as like a little 4-year-old child, and the scene where she's coming down the stairs.
And her cloak.
And her cloak.
And her crown, and she's like, fuck this.
To cast her spell.
Best scene. That was my favorite scene in the whole movie.
Like, just so connecting to it, and like you were saying, like those are those moments when Heka-tea is speaking to you, even though you don't know who she is yet, you don't know anything, but you know that she's there.
You're like, mother.
Exactly.
Mother.
Exactly. So that definitely is one imagery from media that will always be so important to me.
Yeah.
What about you? What are some of your favorite imageries from Halloween?
I mean, I would definitely say, like, in terms of imagery, everything 19... I mean, my favorite imagery is anything particularly, like, from, like, 1890 through, I would want to say, 1929, 1930. That's period of art. The art, the imagery, there's something so haunting and yet also beautiful about all of it when you look at it. It feels like the holiday. There's a spookiness, but there's also like a cuteness to it. There's a playfulness. I love the imagery of like, the old New Yorker covers and the old Saturday Evening Post covers and and the McCall's covers and we were saying the postcards and hiccups, excuse me. And then like the silent film Haxan.
Oh yes,
particularly the sequence of the Witch's Sabbath. Just all of that when the imagery, the special effects of the time, like all of that defined and created witchcraft for me. My aunt living in this spooky Victorian like mansion and like this whole like the way it was lit and the things she collected and the flowers and plants and herbs drying in places and like just like the creaking steps and the ghosts that haunted the place and it just like the brick courtyard out, the rose courtyard out and the moss in between the brick and on the chimneys and on the roof and just there were things that like was held in time as if frozen, as if nothing really moved on after 1929, 1930, and that is what I kind of grew up in. And so at Halloween, everything was extra spooky. And again, like I said, where I lived and how my family is, people would joke that we were the Addams family, and we joke within ourselves as a family on my mom's maternal side that we are the Addams family. And the imagery, one of the things we love to pass around on Thanksgiving and the holidays is the Charles Addams illustration of the entire Addams clan and extended characters sitting at the Thanksgiving or holiday table. So we acknowledge that we terrify people and we love it. We're like the Owens. We're like the Mayfairs. And people always joke that we're the Mayfairs. And so growing up in that, like it embodied, like I had these embodiments of Halloween, grew up with horror films, and I love how it gets dark. I love how it kind of goes from early morning to like sunset evening. there's never like a noon afternoon.
Yeah.
And everything else, like, especially here living in Washington. I mean, right now it's summer. Right now it's still summer.
Right.
We're finally getting into fall. Finally, it's starting to be like in the mid 50s. But we've been in like the 70s and high 60s, 70s, and even a couple 80s in October. So it's been but I was just like the fog and the mystery and the turning leaves and just the idea of, having a cabin in the woods and like going in and there's like things drying and like things lit by lantern and candle.
Exactly.
And
every time that I see fog, I always think of the Mists of Avalon.
Yes. Part that mist.
Exactly.
You're like, I am the great lady of the lake.
Exactly. I personally also love when I'm finishing work for the day during the winter and it's already dark.
Yeah.
I know that's not
that's
not necessarily overtly Halloween, but it's a part of the season.
It is. I think it represents the thinning of the veil.
Yes,
it's the dark time,
of course.
Which a lot of people think just, Halloween, thinning of the veil. No, it lasts through Yule, and between Yule, it just gets thinner and thinner.
Exactly.
And it's creepier and creepier and darker and witchier and witchier and spookier. Anyway, sorry, I'm like, and what do you think is the importance or sacredness of this season specifically for witches and witchcraft? Why is this so important and sacred? And why is it to you? What do you?
Well, I love the expression of referring to Samhain or Halloween as a witch's new year because I really think that it is. I think that our entire calendar, because I enjoy the Wheel of the Year as well. I mean, like you were saying, it gives like a structure and a religiosity to it that I really enjoy. I always felt like I was a religious person, but I didn't identify, with Judeo-Christian religion. And I remember as a child, I tried out so many different churches, because I felt such a strong sense of religion, but I didn't really know where to put it.
Right.
So that's why I really love the Wheel of the Year, because, it gives that same feeling, but in a way that I identify with the actual religion and the subtext.
Yeah.
I was rambling.
You were actually like, girl, you were right on point.
Okay.
But no, so what is what do you think is the importance / the sacredness, so to speak, of the season specifically, and how it relates for witches and witchcraft? Why is it so important?
So what I was saying before I went off on that tangent was that, as witches who do practice the way that we do, our whole calendar revolves around Samhain. This is our high holy day.
Yes.
And
the day of days, the night of nights.
Exactly. And out of many opportunities for celebration throughout the year, like, this is our go big or go home time.
Right.
And it's just, there's something about this time of year that I really think is an opportunity to tap into our witchcraft and our power in a way that the other celebrations do not have.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's always going to be the most sacred time of the year. It's a time to, reflect on the gifts that one has been given over the past year, to reflect on what you want the following year to look like, and just a time to praise our goddesses and our deities in that most high form. That's how I feel about it.
I definitely, and I would add to that too, a time to honor and connect with those who have gone before, our relatives, the unknown dead, those that ancestors, whatever, who we don't know of or never met, don't have a name for, but they're there in our line. I try not to. For someone who is medium clairvoyant, hangs out with the dead, a deadhead, so to speak. But not in that way. God, no. No offense to anyone who listens to the Grateful Dead, they're just not my jam. But I try to not reach out to the dead, on Samhain especially. They got better things to do.
Yeah.
They got time. I like to remember and honor the dead. Also, as someone who, takes part and celebrates Dios de los Muertos, this is just a time where I'm all about honoring and offering and, if anyone's passing by, but I don't actively call, seek out, invite, or even just invite.
Yeah.
I don't invite. It's just not, I think they have their own shit going on, and they have their own thing, they're doing their own stuff, and maybe they're super against witchcraft. Maybe they don't want anything to do with that, and you're like, hey, Aunt Melinda, I want to talk to you, come on in, and she's like, get thee behind me, Satan, like, how dare you? And then you have your dead aunt spirit, like, throwing crap at you and trying to murder you, and now you're in a horror film. Why? Because you didn't stop to think that even though you loved her, she also really loved her Jesus. So, like, yeah, like, so I just try to not take part in the spirit communication aspect of it.
Because most spirits, you know, as two people who are sensitive to spirits can attest, most spirits, if they feel they need something, they are not shy in reaching out.
No.
So if someone has not reached out, there's a reason for that as well.
Correct, yeah. If Aunt Melinda or Uncle Tim Tom wants nothing to do with you, then, or had not wanted anything to do with this, with witchcraft, with magic, if they were super against it, they loved you and you loved them and you had a great relationship, but maybe they didn't even know you practiced witchcraft, like, but you really want to communicate with them, I would not do so.
Yeah.
The way I would honestly do it is I would just, in the case of, I would really in that take a memorial table altar offerenda, like, put their picture out.
Right.
If Tim Tom loved Virginia Slims because he was just that kind of guy, then get him a pack of Virginia Slims and put it on his picture. If Aunt Melinda was really, really into scrapbooking, yeah, go get a scrapbook, get a scrapbook and scrapbook with her. Like, open it up, start scrapbooking memories with her, and don't say, oh, I invite you. Don't call out to them. Just say, you know, acknowledge, say, I miss you, and they'll hear you. The veil is thin as hell. I mean, they will hear you. If the intention is there, you push it forward, they will hear you. And then they won't feel like you're not really practicing anything, you're just memorializing them and honoring them, and it welcomes them in, but then it's completely of their own accord. You're not offending them, you're not using things, because let me tell you, your dead relatives, their spirit, they're not popping in on you or hounding you all the time. Like, they are doing their own shit, right? So, like, they might still never know you practice witchcraft. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they just still aren't seeing you do any spell work. They're not popping in. Like, why ruin it?
Exactly.
Why? Like, maybe have that conversation with them, like, through divination or something, through some way. But I would say, like, if you really want to connect with someone that you love, a relative, whoever, and they were just not down for the craft, they weren't down with the witchness, then just honor them.
Yes.
And they will, if they want to, they'll show up. And if they want to communicate with you, then they will. And usually they do. If they love you, they will want to make sure that you feel their love and presence.
Exactly.
So, with that, retrogrades, oh wait, what did I want to say? Oh yeah, sorry, Silver RavenWolf of it all.
Oh yes.
So I have been reading Halloween, the custom spells recipes of Halloween by Silver RavenWolf. Icon, love her. She's just iconic, was a witch of a generation, really symbolized an alternative time, and Llewellyn publications were at their peak of awesome, and like almost every witchcraft book on the shelf was from Llewellyn. I will say that there's a lot of things on point in this and what I've read, but she kind of just glosses over more non-European white cultural aspects. Like, she just briefly will mention other practices, other stuff, but she's really focused on European, European, American, and like powwow or something, like, let me see if I can, where it is. So it's pagan practices, Christian practices, and American practices, and it's kind of a focus on, like, just, like, European and American, white Anglo-Saxon kind of branches, and then the Christian intermingling kind of doesn't wholly go in, like I said, just kind of briefly mentions other, like, time-passing death we'll say death celebrations, fire festival, death celebrations. And what I found was, like, it just kind of reminded me of how, like, white-centric kind of ethno-European Wicca is, and by extension witchcraft has the face of, and has had the face of, when that is, like, super, like, a small aspect.
Absolutely.
And I think that, you know, that's been a problem that has kind of plagued witchcraft and Halloween, is that, like, when they've talked about the exploration of, like, at this time of year, when, like, everyone's like, oh, let's talk to witches, let's interview witches, it keeps going to Wiccans. Yeah. Like, they keep seeking out Wiccans, and then, like, I've seen, like, BuzzFeed, always, you know, BuzzFeed, we're gonna meet a witch videos, shit like that, which we'll do an episode on. They're always going to the same witchcraft bookshop,
Yeah.
but in LA. But they're also just always talking to Wiccans, and it's
Yeah.
always this Wiccan perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in terms of Halloween, the kitschiness or the commodifying capitalistic side of Wicca, which there really is one. I mean, like, I always just kind of equate it to like the televangelist channels and stuff. Like, it's kind of almost like the witchy pagan kind of version of that. It's very like, oh, we have witch kits for teens,
right.
and like just all this cutesy like gimmicky stuff, and which just I even remember being like 20 years ago, 23 years ago, so appalled by it, 25 years ago, so appalled by it that like it turned me off because I was just like because it was just being like, this is the authoritative voice on witchcraft, and as a result, it's really started to define things, and I just feel like at this time of year, we kind of suffer as witches. We kind of suffer under the cloak of Wicca as being the sought-after voice for witchcraft at this time of year when people are seeking it out. So I would say that's kind of like what I would call the Silver RavenWolf of it all. Just the kind of Scott Cunningham, Silver RavenWolf, Richard Buckland, Laurie Cabot, kind of, who pioneers all of them, but they also help shape this commodified culture of like corporate market, put it in a box and sell it overpriced tools and accoutrement witchcraft. And their version of witchcraft, which was really compiled and then put together and created by Gerald Gardner in the 30s and 40s, has now become kind of the thing that defines witchcraft, and we see it in TV shows and media, where when they do get things right about witchcraft, i.e. they're not just associating with the devil, it then still is referencing a Wiccan standpoint, because I think Wicca makes it safe. It makes witchcraft safe. And so that's my only about it.
And unfortunately, I think that in Wicca, and especially Wicca as popularized by media, there is an erasure of the darkness of life.
Yes.
Which I don't think is necessarily compatible with a time of year when that darkness of life really comes to the forefront.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's something that is deniable. I think that in order to have a full and well-rounded practice, like, you need that darkness and you need that light.
Yeah, for sure. You have to. So, briefly, has everyone felt very reflective this time, like, right now? Does everyone feel, like, very, like, reflective just on your relationships and your place in the world lately, like, in the past, like, I don't know, this past month, like, really since the start of the month, like, I know I have. I definitely felt very kind of self-reflective, more than just more action and more proactive. It's been more, not reactive, but retroactive almost. Retractive. It's been retractive. Well, everyone, that's because we've had, like, 3 retrogrades. We've had the eclipse, which was also on the new moon. We've had this full moon of the month, which is the super moon.
A super blood moon.
Super blood moon, yes. And then November 1st, which is still, Dios de los Muertos, which actually does begin before those 3 days. It's just those 3 final days are what we're the most known and most celebrated, because it's the culmination, but there are days leading, little things you do leading up to that. But it's, still that time, the veil, like I said, the veil is just getting thinner, it's already thin, and it's not re-strengthening. It's getting thinner and still continuing to thin. And, that's why Yule Christmas time is exceptionally spooky. Like, even though it's, like, beautiful, there's always an air of spooky to it. Why we tell ghost stories by the fire. Because, and we will get into that obviously, when we get to that time. But, so, November 1st is the new moon again. So, all within this time of the veil thinning, and essentially within a month, we've had these 3 moon events. We've had new moon with an eclipse, full moon, super moon, and then the day after Halloween, November 1st, so still essentially October, we have a new moon again. So everything has basically been like, reflect inward, look at yourselves, trash. Like, you all are like, we're all over the place, and we've all gotten really into ourselves, into our heads, and this time has really been about, everyone's like, oh my god, retrogrades are so terrible, like, Jupiter's in a retrograde now, and will be, I think, through February. It's like the 3rd retrograde, the last, or 3rd or 4th, 3rd retrograde, I think, of this time, so, and it's all been just about, like, how, reflecting on our relationships, how we are treating other people, kind of getting out of our own way, and really just kind of seeing where we're at and where we're going. Basically, I wrote down here, getting out of your own way so you can see everyone else's. And it's kind of bitchy, but I am. But it's also true. Like, it's not necessarily a negative. Like, you need to see other people's directions. You need to get out of your own way to see the place that other people are coming from.
Yeah.
And we've been bombarded at this time of the veil thinning to really explore ourselves, to really explore inward and reflect. So for everyone watching, if you have been feeling kind of like in your feelings, and like having like repressed memories of childhood and stuff coming up, or things that maybe you're just like suddenly feeling guilt over that you did in the past, that like you're just like, wow, like I really just like treated that person or that situation wrong or whatever. This is why. So don't bemoan it, celebrate it, and be in it.
One of my favorite things that I've heard about eclipses is that they're portals that put you where you need to be.
Yes.
And that if you are doing the work and to get yourself to that place, it will be a nice, happy journey, and you will come out on top smelling like roses.
Yes.
But if you have not done that shadow work, she's coming for you.
Yes. And not everyone's ready for shadow work. That is a, some people are actively still in a trauma.
Yes.
But it is true that if you are avoiding, I would say if you're avoiding it.
Right.
Like, as long as if you're in the middle of it, but you're owning it, you're not denying that it's happening, you're aware of the reality and you're not running from it, then it will put you where you need to be, and that might be out of the fucking situation, however that looks, in good ways. But
if you've got your head stuck in the sand.
Yeah, and you're denying even to yourself the reality of what's going on in your life and around you, then it's gonna kick your ass.
Exactly.
All over the place.
So I think that eclipses are not anything, and same for retrogrades actually. I don't think either of them
they get a bad rap.
Yeah, they really do. But I don't think they're
like the death card.
Right, exactly. I don't think they're anything to fear and to be startled over. I just think that they are different energies that you need to address in order to keep the ball of your own life rolling forward.
Agreed. Lastly, because, we all have things to do, it is that time of year, witches, we wanted to talk about, like we said, we're going to review witchy media, good, bad, obscure documentaries from the 60s, 70s, the 50s, on YouTube, just anything and everything, new segments where witches were interviewed and spoke, witch talks. We're going to get into all of, like, witch talk and how that, like, is, like, charlatan place number one to take money from people.
Right.
Are you listening to me? If you're seeing this, the cards have a message for you.
Right.
No, they don't. They do not.
If your name begins with the letters T or N,
then this is for you, and DM me and give me $400. Keep scrolling. But we're going to kick it off with a review of a timeless classic for witches, for gays.
For both.
Do anyone outside of that actually even love this movie? I just feel like it's witches and gays. And Cozy Sweater Girls.
Oh, yes.
Hocus Pocus. Everything's wrong, and it's deliciously oh so right with this movie, and we're going to discuss it and talk about why. Now, obviously, let's just get it out of the way. There is nothing even remotely non-based in Christian mythology and folklore in terms of witches about this movie.
No, not at all.
Like, it is, they go to hell.
They eat children.
They take the life of children. So they not only suck the life out of kids, you gotta remember, they also eat them.
Yeah.
Like, they fly on brooms, literally. They're not astral projecting and using the broom as a magical tool to do so and to fly on through the astral realm.
Their master is Satan.
And
don't even get me started on the historical accuracy of the outfits, but that's another.
Oh god, the outfits. You have Mary, who's like the bar wench, like, giving grog. Like, she's, like, wearing those, like, plaid, like, itchy, woolly throw blankets over her, like, dress, like, and you just feel like she's gonna bring you mead, and then you have, what would you classify Sarah as? Because she's wearing, like, what is it? Those tushy panties.
Yes.
She's wearing garters and tushy panties, almost like she's out of, like, I don't know, like, she's out of the 18th century, 17th century, 18th century. But then, like, up here, the bodice and all, it's very, like, I don't know, like medieval times. I don't know. It's weird.
There's a lot going on, and they're all wearing more vibrant colors than women of their station would have had access to.
Right.
Like, it's
In velvet,
yeah,
crushed velvet,
yes.
and Winifred is straight up like a wizard.
Yes.
Like, she's not even a witch, she's like a sorceress.
Yes.
She's the sorceress. Like, I wouldn't call her a witch. Like, I would even say Winifred's a witch. Like,
right.
By looking at her, she's a sorceress.
Right, she's a magician.
Yeah,
You know?
like, it's so, the costumes are so, like...
So out there.
Yeah, but, you know, and then you have, you know, it's basically a film that's like, have sex.
Yeah, exactly.
Have sex. Being a virgin
will get you
killed. Like, get laid as quickly as possible. Like, you're 8, go have sex. Like, quickly as possible, because you don't get caught lighting a black flame candle.
Exactly.
Made from the fat of a hangman, which I do like, because, okay, so that isn't false.
Right.
So that is a necromantic magical practice, where to contact the dead, or to get one's spirit to do your bidding and be bound to you. And it was easier to get, like, the accused, the spirit of the condemned, the accused, especially if they were actually guilty. It was custom to use to dig them up. You usually didn't have to dig them up because they weren't buried. They were usually left to rot outside.
True.
But you would go and, like, get their fat and boil it down, and then you would make a candle of it.
Yeah.
And then light it, take it to their grave, and summon them. So not entirely false.
Right.
And I love the black flame candle in the original movie. It's so beautiful.
It is.
Disappointed with its reappearance look in the sequel.
Yes.
But whatever. That's not about that. We're talking about the first film. Beautiful candle. Love that it's in Salem. I mean, everything about this, like, is just...
It's just... I think that... like,
delicious.
So much of what has made this movie endure is the aesthetics.
Yeah, the aesthetics of it, because, I mean, come on now. The script is paper thin. It's not the thickest. There is so much heart to it, though.
Oh, absolutely.
There is also so much questionable naughtiness. I mean, Binks and Emily.
Oh, yeah.
And then Binks and Danny.
Mm-hmm.
Danny and Binks, after Danny sees Binks as a ghost boy teen, and then she's like,
oh, yeah.
And then Emily is like, get away from that girl. Like, I mean, yeah, we'll just say I can understand the fight. I mean, I would be fighting over Thackeray Binks and Max, because Omri Katz, oh my god. Sick population, 665, Erie, Indiana, coming for you, Max. But Omri, yeah, everything, just aesthetics, the imagery, it feels like it.
Yes.
Like, we become an adult, especially once you become an adult, now especially, like, as a kid in the 90s, 80s and 90s and early 2000s, you know, media, the Halloween commercials, Halloween specials, Halloween-themed contests from Budweiser, Coors, Bug Root Beer, where you could, like, party with Elvira at the Psycho Mansion.
Right.
Like, all these, like, things, like Snick or Treat, Nick at Night, just all these things. Like, there was just the Halloween tree.
I don't even get me started.
Right. Well, and I was going to split this between Hocus Pocus and the Halloween tree. Fuck it, maybe we'll just get into the Halloween tree really quick. Sidebar. Well, first of all, let's finish with Hocus Pocus, and then we'll get to Halloween tree super quick. We're not going to waste much time on it. But I did actually want to touch base on it, only because I do have my little beef with it, my tiny micro beef with it, which I'm sure is your micro beef with it. But, it is dripping with Christian mythology and folklore and scare tactics about witches. There is no real mention of the pre-pagan traditions. There is no... I mean, it takes place in 1693.
Yeah.
I mean, there was just nothing even going on by that point.
Exactly.
Everyone
it was over.
And they were all just rotting on the hill still, but no one was new. Like, it was over. But, whatever. You do you, girl. Your nails were long. Your hair was big. You had boob hair, too. Just like Dracula. Like, you borrowed it from Dracula.
Oh,
like, Dracula, you were like, let me have your boob hair.
Exactly.
And then a year later, you had boob hair. Like, you get that boob hair. You grow those nails out and you wear your crushed velvet. And, like, you're, like, fine, like, dyed silk cloaks of thin silk.
Yeah.
Like, it, you know, it's got, but it feels like the holiday.
It does. I think it's the perfect kickoff movie to start that spooky season.
Exactly, 100%. Like, there's no better way to kick off spooky season than, especially if you're one to decorate for the holiday, than putting it on, especially if you've seen it a zillion times. It's one of those that you put on in the background while you're, like, maybe eating pumpkin bread or Halloween candy, and you're hanging your decorations, and you're getting in that mood, and it does it. It does it
absolutely.
for it, and it feels, and it just, you want to crawl inside and live in it. So yeah, that's why we're giving this a full moon. Now on to Halloween Tree. So we have a film based off a book by Ray Bradbury.
And I love that he narrated
the
movie.
Same.
And I also love that there were passages from the actual book in his narration. And I really think that more books turned movies should do that, because it really it really just gives you an air of what the book is.
Yeah, the dialogue needs to be in it.
Yeah,
just everything needs to actually be in it.
That books that don't have those passages completely miss, and I think that's a shame.
Agreed. So we have, Manfred Moonshroud? No.
Carapace Clavicle Mounshroud.
Yes, Carapace Clavicle Mounshroud. And he has a Halloween tree, and this Halloween tree is comprised of pumpkins that are the souls of people. Those who have died. He's basically grandfather death. Mm-hmm. He looks like Nosferatu.
He does.
Without fangs. But he's dressed like Dracula, and he has, like, a Dracula cloak.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and then there's a section where he's unable to go into a church, and
yes.
he states that it's because there are certain places that he is not as welcome as others, end
yes.
quote.
Yes.
And so there is, and he flies, so there's a vampiric subtext to him for sure.
But then he also is a magician.
Yeah.
He's a sorcerer. And he has this tree that collects souls, and we have the story sets with four children, mm-hmm. One of which, Pipkin.
Yes, Joe Pipkin.
Joe Pipkin is sick.
Yes.
And this is the time of TB. This is, just by watching the cartoon, you can tell it's like 1940 something, 1930 something.
It's appendicitis in the movie.
Appendicitis. Yeah. Excuse me. Yes, appendicitis. Scratch that. Appendicitis.
Which I only know off the top of my head because I just watched it a couple weeks ago.
See, and I haven't rewatched it yet. This year, I watch it every year,
yeah.
but I have not rewatched it again this year. I just know he's dying.
Yeah,
he's on the bridge.
Yeah, he's at death's door.
He's in a liminal place. Yeah. He's ready. Heka-tee's waiting for him at the crossroads. Santa Muerte's waiting. They're all waiting. And Joe Pipkin does not want that to happen, so he refuses death. Takes his pumpkin. He's out the door. Mr. Clavicle is all upset and wants his pumpkin back. He wants his souls back, because I think it powers him. Like, I think that's what his magic comes from. And so his friends who are alive, was it Jenny,
Tom, Ralph, and there's one
the
other.
one with glasses.
Yeah. I thought that was Ralph.
I thought Ralph was the hunchback.
I'm remembering it wrong. Well, whatever.
There's four of them. They're a group. They're Power Rangers. Yeah. And they are, like, following Pip's ghost because they can see him. And they're like, oh, there he is. Which, like, that's one thing they don't even really get into, is why they're seeing Pip's ghost.
Yeah, that's true.
But they are seeing Pip's ghost.
And isn't it only after they get to Mr. Mounshroud's home, and they've gained entry into the home, that they're able to see his ghost?
But was that established that they could see him because they entered his house? Or was it they were at the house and then they just happened to spot Pip? I always thought they just happened to then, like, they're getting yelled at for being intruders, but then they see Pip go into the house.
Yeah, no, it wasn't established. At least, I haven't read the book in quite some time. At least, I know that it's not established in the movie. But yeah, that's an interesting point as well.
Because don't they fall, like, they see him go into it. They're like, oh, Pip's going, there he is, he's going into the old house. And so they're like, Pip, like, going to find him. So they're seeing his spirit. Yeah, because they see him on the street. They see him when they're out trick-or-treating, and they follow him to, like, oh, he went in here, and then they say, look, he's going into the house. And, but I just find it funny they never get into why the kids can see his spirit, and the thinning of the veil on that mark. That just never is explored. Maybe it's in the book. I haven't read it since, like, middle school, maybe. Yeah. Obviously, we're just talking about the hour-long cartoon movie. But, anyway, they end up going on this trip through the history of Halloween, of the holiday, because they don't know why they're dressed in the costumes that they wear. So Tom's a skeleton, possibly Ralph or Poindexter is a mummy, possibly Ralph or Quasimodo is Quasimodo. Well, he's a gargoyle. A Quasimodo-type gargoyle, because he still kind of is dressed like Quasimodo.
Yeah, I mean, he at the beginning of the movie, he just thinks he's a monster, but then there's
the whole scene of ringing the bells, and they rebuild the chapel.
And then Jenny's
the witch.
And the only girl.
The only girl. And it's so... why were authors really into that? It was very, like, Stephen King and It.
Yeah,
it's the same, like, all these boys and then one girl. It's so weird. And then they end up going through the history of Halloween to find Pip. And they go through cultures of time, and they go to Mexico and learn about Dios de los Muertos, and they go to Egypt and learn about the Book of the Dead and the rituals of the dead and making a mummy, and they go to Paris, France, and rebuild a cathedral, and I still don't really know what that had to do with Halloween. It was just more like, it felt like a Hunchback of Notre Dame segment. Yeah. Like, I was like, maybe Ray Bradbury was just, like, really into Victor Hugo and Hunchback and just really wanted to pay tribute.
Right.
Like,
I think that...
I mean, talk about the gargoyles.
Kind of the point was, like, why we love monsters and what that comes from psychologically.
I can see that.
But it was specifically then geared towards like a gargoyle, and at Notre Dame specifically. So.
And then he's like ringing the bells, and
there's things that don't necessarily bridge that gap, but that is what it's explained as to be.
Yes, and then, but we get to the beef part.
Yeah.
The beef part, and of course, it's the witch part.
Yeah.
Things they get right, things they get wrong. Okay, so they travel through time and end up in like Yorkshire, England, or something like that, or Devon. Stonehenge, yes, and they find a bunch of pagans, a bunch of country folk of the land, peasant folk, pagan folk, farm folk, having a fire festival, celebrating Samhain. They're celebrating Samhain, or if they're in, England, so it would have been Samhain, and then Ireland would have been Samhain, and then Wales would have been Samhain. So they're celebrating Samhain, and they're doing all the stuff you do at this time of year that you would have done, pagans would have done back then.
Yeah.
Oh, and pagan just means like of the land, country folk, outside folk people. Pagan was not how they identified in terms of like, oh, I'm a pagan. They were just non-denominational polytheists. Like they believed in many different gods and goddesses, the spirit of the land. They were polytheists. They wouldn't even call themselves, well, no, because polytheists did exist. That's a word from like the Greek, and so they would have been like, oh, you're a polytheist. Like, they wouldn't have been like, oh, we're pagans. Like, that was something else. That was in reference to them, and it was usually in academic avenues, institutions, like, and then maybe in a disparaging, gross way. And then you did have people who identified as witches. Like, you did have people who were witches. And, even the Bible, the Witch of Endor, like, witch is there. But, like, you did not, you in general would not have self-identified as a witch.
Right.
Well, I will say, no, in pre-Christian areas or parts where the pre-Christian beliefs still like existed and took hold, like villages did have a witch, and like in those cases, a lot they would say they were a witch.
I'm the village witch.
Yeah. Or wise person, or spiritual, not spiritualist, but like wise person, wise one, cunning folk, a cunning person. They would have whatever. But in general, especially once Christianity took over in the 4th century, you didn't want to be called a witch. But they're seen dancing, whatever, and he basically, while they're flying through time and space, and there's magic and shit, mind you, he then turns around and says that that they have no magic, that there's no witches or witchcraft, they were just wise people who believed. I don't even know, they don't even really go into it. They just kind of fly over them. That was my thing too, is like, they don't stop there. They stopped everywhere else. Right. And had a whole thing. With Jenny, they just, like, flew over. They just flew with a brief, like, we're not going to touch this.
And also what I don't like about that scene is when he's explaining all of this, the explanation that he gives to the word witch is that it's related to the expression at that time that someone smart had their wits about them.
Right.
Which was not... The etymology was not there.
That's not true. That's just not true. Like, was that, like, a casual way of calling them wise ones or cunning folk, and like, and then trying to be cute. I don't know, but like, yeah, it was just Ray Bradbury for all of his research on everything.
And then he follows it up with like, anyone too smart was called, and then there's like this chorus of, oh, witch! Like, it's just a little cheesy,
so cheesy.
And it's not true.
Yeah, not at all. And it just glossed over us, and it glossed over witchcraft, and it glossed over the craft, and it glossed over, and I'm not going to say Wicca and paganism, like, it glossed over witches, witchcraft, in the traditional folkloric, historical, archaic sense, not the,
Wally, that's the gargoyle's name.
Wally the gargoyle. There we go. Wally,
sorry, I've been thinking about it for 20 minutes.
No, I love it. Seek and ye shall find.
Exactly.
Seek us down the road, which we are, again, like I said, we're going to have a whole Agatha episode. I like how we just kind of were like, Hocus Pocus, totally Christian-centric, it's everything wrong, but it's fantastic and campy and gay and perfect, so yay. And then here we're like, actually, let's put on the boxing gloves now, and let's talk about this. Like, love the Halloween tree, love it. But this part, and I remember being, even when I first saw it as a kid, I got so angry. I was like, so angry that was what we got. They didn't land, there was no actual in-depth talk about Celtic tradition, druids, witches, wise folk, cunning folk, gods, goddesses, like, no actual, you talk about everything else.
But not us.
And it's like, you touched on Egypt, but Like, they also did kind of skirt over the deities of Egypt on that, too.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
they talked a lot about the mummification process and, like,
yes.
where that tradition was coming from, but you're right, they didn't go into the gods.
No. And
I mean, the Prince of Egypt did a better job than that.
Right. And so then when they get to Mexico, Dias de los Muertos, now they don't specifically go all Christian, like say Christianity, but the Christian imagery is there, the churches, the rosaries, like all the imagery is there. They don't hide from it, gloss over it, and they do talk about going to church, like and how they go to the cemeteries and like leave out offerings, food for their relatives, and have a dumb supper. For those of you who don't know what a dumb supper is, haven't heard the term, a dumb supper is when you leave a place setting out for your dead relative or loved one, and or if you are a spiritualist witch of a certain type, maybe you're just open to anyone coming through your door and sitting down at your table. We don't judge. A little bit. Anyway, so that's what a dumb supper is. A dumb supper is y'all sit down to dinner and you make a plate for Uncle Tim Tom, like we talked about before. Again, another way that you can honor him and make him feel welcome. Maybe he'll show up.
But
invite him to the dinner table. Yeah, just say maybe you make their favorite meal. Like let's say you guys always did Sunday night dinner at Aunt and Uncle's house, right? And Uncle Tim Tom really loved, chicken parmesan. So you make chicken parmesan for Halloween. Like you make chicken parm and you make all of his favorite meals. Let's say he loved, a good Bud Light. He liked Bud Light. You pour him a Bud Light and put his picture out at in front of the plate. But just set it right there in front of the plate. There you go. That is a dumb supper. You guys sit down and you just let him know you're thinking of him. And if he decides to stop by and say hello, there's a meal out for him. But don't directly say, hey, come in, or I'm inviting you, I'm summoning you, please join us. No, this is not Beetlejuice. This is not, we're going to lay out the fucking bride dress and the groom's tux and summon from the dead.
Right.
So yeah, anyway, so that's a dumb supper. And they show that in the Mexico sequence. Yeah. They get into everything except when it comes to anything pre-Christian. Yeah. It just got glossed over. But at least they went into everything else. Yeah. But with witches, they literally flew over it.
They did. Quite literally, on their broomsticks.
Quite literally, on their broomsticks. While he's saying there's no witches, they have their wits about them, and they're flying broomsticks. And they're crossing through time and space, following their friend who is basically a ghost, clinging to his pumpkin soul, so he doesn't die. Like,
spinning the pumpkin every time he wants to take them to a new time and space.
Right, to teach them a new lesson of Halloween.
Right.
Like,
although that being said, I'll always love it.
100%. I would say, do I give it a full moon? No. I would give it a waxing gibbous.
Yeah.
I would give it a waxing gibbous. More than a waxing crescent. Like, it's more than, like, you're almost there.
Yeah.
You're almost there. But because of that, and because I wanted more, and it's only 47 minutes, and I wish it was longer.
Yeah. Oh, man. I wish that it was a full 2-hour movie.
Thank you.
Because, maybe they would have had time to delve into those things that got glossed over before.
And that was just Christianity and misogyny.
Yeah, that's true. But if it were remade, I think that it could have been done justice in a way that it wasn't.
100%, and let's hope someone does. Remake it in an honorable, respectful, truthful way, but also then goes in and fills in the blanks and things that were left out, especially on the witchcraft.
Exactly. And, if there's one, positive note that we can end this talk on, it's that I love that the entire point of that movie and that book was that they were dressed up in these very common costumes, but they had no idea what it meant.
Yes.
And Mountchark takes them on this journey so that they can learn what is inside these costumes and then take them into their daily lives going forward. I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And if you haven't seen the Halloween tree, do so. If you haven't seen Hocus Pocus, which at this point I don't know how you haven't, but if you haven't, please, we highly encourage you to do so. Enjoy it, go to town. If you are a witch, if you are proud of being a witch, you are loving it, living it, being it, doing it, casting it, and you do like things to take things seriously or whatever, and you haven't seen Hocus Pocus yet, and you do maybe get bent out of shape about things coming from like a Christian point of view and blah blah blah. And I say this because when Hocus Pocus came out, witches protested it. They also protested The Witches, which is another movie that we will get into, the original, not the remake. But like people from the Wiccan community, because it's always that's the thing, it's always the Wiccans. It's always the Wiccans. The Wiccans come out and they protest witchy shit. Or have something to say about it, and it's misrepresentation, and they suck all the fun out of it. Ugh. suspend the Abrahamic hang-ups of the Abrahamic faith and God and all their bullshit. And
I don't think there's anything wrong with having fun with your history.
Yeah,
you know?
have fun with it. It's the only way to it's a great way to honor it. Because then you're always talking about it by honoring it. And you're taking the power back from the people who perpetrated. And let's be clear, like, most people killed during the witch hunts were not witches. The people, for me, like, for example, when I see that, like, we are the witches, we are the daughters, or I like to say we are the children of the witches that you couldn't burn or you didn't burn.
Yeah.
Like, okay, most of them were not witches.
Right.
That's how I don't see it. I see it as most witches were smart and got away.
Exactly.
So we are the children of the witches you didn't burn, because you didn't burn any witches. Like, there were some that you burned, hung, killed, but most witches were fucking smart. We're cunning.
Yeah.
We are cunning. We already knew. We are the children of the witches you didn't burn.
Exactly.
Because we all got away. But in general, there were no witches, but, it is a touchy moment, and there is a way of taking that power back from the Inquisitors, from the witch hunters, from the witchfinder generals. Fuck you, Matthew Hopkins. I think there is power in joking about it, making fun of it, talking about it, and yeah, you have to. So watch Hocus Pocus. If you haven't seen it, give it a try. Just allow yourself to be a kid again and enjoy it. If you haven't seen The Halloween Tree, watch it. Even with the witch Jenny wits about them fly by night, literally on the broomsticks over the situation, it is still worth it, because it is still the most intellectual, historically based piece of children's media that was created, that took things out of Halloween's scary, bad, Satan's birthday, Christianity, blah blah blah. So I will commend Ray Bradbury for that,
absolutely.
and commend whatever channel it was originally. Maybe it was, was it ABC or CBS? One of those.
I don't remember. I know that the producer was Hanna-Barbera. That is mispronounced it, but
that's all right.
That is really something that tells you how many times I've seen this movie.
Yes.
Because I can just clearly see the script, in front of my face.
So obviously, if you guys liked this first episode, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment, share the episode far and wide, send it amongst the lands.
Exactly.
And notes on comments. If you didn't like it, you don't find us appealing, you want to say something nasty, if you hate witches or whatever, you're not a witch, whatever. Just so you know, we don't care. We literally don't care. We're not going to read your negative comments. If you leave a negative comment, we're just going to probably delete them. I'm just going to be honest. I'm just going to tell you, as a published author who's been in this game for 20 years now, I don't read my reviews have nothing to do with me. I don't read book reviews. I don't pay attention to the negative shit. I literally just delete it and I don't respond. I won't get into beef. We're not going to allow for beef.
No.
On our episodes and for people to get into it. So yeah, if you like the episode, you got great constructive things to say, want to have dialogue, conversation, let us know some of your favorite witchy things that you love about the season. Let us know some of the things that are special to you about the season that make you feel particularly witchy and what you love about them. What witchy media, books that you like that, especially at this time of year, really just connect with you. And let us know what you do to celebrate this time of year. What, in terms of your culture, whether through your family or your found family, or just traditions you've created yourself, or through your witchy practice in life, do you participate in for this time of year? Again, let us know in the comments. And as always, remember, witches, broomsticks, not just for cleaning.